again, YouTube. Welcome back to the Card Combo Show with me, Chuck Billy, where we look at the weird and wonderful card combinations in the Final Fantasy TCG. And this week, I'm going to be looking at the new cards from the Anniversary Collection set. This little bad boy here, yes, very, very pretty artwork. Yes, Squall on the front, the poster boy. I won't be looking at the Tidus Yuna anniversary card because it only combos with anniversary cards, and there's like 3 and they're not particularly great. Maybe in 20 years time we'll be able to build an anniversary deck, but for now, no. So I'll be looking at the 3 new cards and then a couple of other cards. So I'll be looking at Squall, Yuna, Lightning, and then Zidane, who is from Opus 8, and Larkeicus from Opus 9. So first up we have Squall. So he's a 3 CP 6k fire forward with haste. When Squall enters the field or attacks, choose one forward. It gains plus 2000 power until the end of the turn. And then damage 3, when Squall attacks, choose one forward. It gains this forward cannot block until the end of the turn. So nothing to write home about, but still decent abilities, and maybe a nice addition if you just want to throw him into a deck you're looking for some space for a 3 CP fire card. So Chalinka, when Chalinka enters the field, choose one forward. Until the turn, it gains Brave, and this forward can attack twice in the same turn. So you can play Squall onto the field, choose something, gains plus 2000. Play Chalinka onto the field, Squall can attack twice. Every time he attacks, he will make something not be able to block, and also get to buff something else as well. So he can effectively make himself an 10k even, if he chooses himself twice. But also just be able to make it so that other forwards cannot block as well is quite powerful. And let's say you make it so your opponent's big forwards can't block, they're forced to have to block with something else, and they'll probably die because Squall is now huge. Hyo, so this is kind of silly, but you might have Hyo already on the field. You can play Squall onto the field, give Hyo plus 2000. You can attack with Squall, give Hyo another 2000, at which point he's on a 7k. You can then pay the 3 lightning to make it so that Hyo can become a 10k forward, and when he attacks, he deals 2 damage as well. When he deals damage to the opponent, it becomes 2. A bit of a roundabout way of using Hyo's ability when you could just pay the 1 lightning, but using Squall's ability means that you can play him onto the field and then attack, make it so something can't block, and if that was your opponent's only way of making something or being able to block Hyo, it means that now Hyo can actually get through and deal another couple of points of damage as well. Geomancer, so just having a fire deck with lots of cards that make it so your opponent can't block. So maybe running Geomancer, Yotsuyu, just all these cards that make it so that your opponent's forwards can't block and all your forwards can attack through, and having additional effects on the attack as well. So stuff like Squall make it so that forwards become big is really useful, because it means that even if your opponent does have a singular forward that can block, chances are it's going to die as well. Idea, so again, making more forwards not block, but having just a static 5 or more can't block is quite nice, because if your opponent is playing something like Marsh, just for the consistency, or something huge like BFA, it just gets around those cards without targeting, which is really, really nice. And then, yeah, just make it so that you've kind of blanketed loads of other forwards can't block, and then Squall just for those 1-2 other forwards, making them not be able to block as well. It's quite nice. Fits a Final Fantasy VIII theme deck as well if you really want to, and also you just have to be careful of Adia does affect your forwards as well, so making sure that you don't run any 5 costs or more, because they can't block either. Sifa, just lots of on-attack abilities. Again, more Final Fantasy VIII. A Final Fantasy VIII deck is, even in the right elements, hard to make good, so I'm just kind of throwing these cards together really, but it's nice because you can use Squall to make it so that your forwards become bigger and make it so their forwards can't block, and then if their forwards can't block, Sifa deals your opponent a point of damage. That means all your opponent's forwards lose 2000 power as well, which you could combo into some other things, potentially more field damage, just to get rid of your opponent's board. Onion Knight, again a bit of a weird one, but when Onion Knight deals damage to your opponent, you may search for one card named Onion Knight and add it to your hand. So make sure your opponent can't block. You then attack with Onion Knight, get a card to your hand to then use something along the lines of Meteor. Now Meteor, choose one for damage equal to Onion Knight's power. So attacking with Squall, you can buff Onion Knight and make it so one of your opponent's forwards can't block. So when you do get that Onion Knight S for the following turn, because obviously you have to attack with Onion Knight to be able to use his ability, unless you already had one, at which point you can use his ability Blade Torrent to give him more power, First Strike Brave, blah blah blah. Yeah, basically you either have to wait a turn to then be able to use Meteor, but then again you have to attack the Squall again, so it's kind of a roundabout way, but just another card that you could utilize if you really want to do. And Onion Knights are in fire, so kind of works. Rubicante. So a damage 3 Rubicante gains plus 3000 power. So that would mean that you would have, means you have an 8k there. Now obviously with Squall's do not block ability, be wary because it is only at damage 3, but it means that you can play Squall onto the field and make it so Rubicante then becomes a 10k potentially. You can then attack with Squall, make it so that something else can't block, and then make Rubicante huge. And then if your opponent's forced to block this final point of damage, because the fact you can make it so that forwards can't block means that their blocking options become limited, you can make it so it's actually something massive is the last blocking forward. Rubicante attacks, Rubicante potentially dies. You can then put a 10k Rubicante into the break zone. That 10k Rubicante, or if it's traded with something, kill that forward, and then you get to deal 10k to something else as well. Basically making it so that your opponent's blocking options are limited, but when they do block something, it's killing lots of other forwards anyway. Right, next we have Yuna, a 3 CP 7k water forward with the abilities of remove 4 cards in the break zone from the game, choose them forward, it loses 4000 power until the end of the turn, and then Dull, choose them forward until the end of the turn, it loses 2000 power for each forward you control. So a really strong card, but not, I don't think it's unleveling so the fact that you can just keep removing things from your break zone, but 4 cards I think is a good amount, because it's really hard for you to get to that point to be able to minus 8k unless you're fairly far into the game, and even then you're only killing one thing. So I think it's a leveled ability, and the Dull really is the best ability there because it's not too hard to get to too many forwards, and as long as Yuna's been on the field a turn, she can probably nuke something. Kind of similar to the Opus 16 Vivi being able to dull and deal damage equal to the amount of black mages you have. So Barbarisha enters the field, choose one forward, its power becomes 1000. You then use units to put 4 cards into the break zone, or remove them from the break zone, sorry, and that forward's power is now just 0. So a nice easy way just to get rid of something. Layla, Vikings, obviously works excellently with Yuna's dull ability. Play Layla, bring out a Viking, which reveals the top however many cards, play more Vikings, and just get yourself to 4, and yeah, it's not hard for the Yuna then to start nuking stuff really quickly. Probably play Yuna first, let her stay a turn. If she manages to survive, you play Layla. If your opponent can't respond at that point, then hopefully Yuna's going to be killing something. Go. Just a match made in heaven. So yeah, just even removing 4 cards from the break zone, now something's losing 4000 power. Or if you are just dulling Yuna with Go-Go on the field, you are going to be minus 8k'ing something. Obviously, technically, it's 2 pockets of minus 4000 power, but the good thing about this is it doesn't interact the same way that damage does, because if you deal 2 pockets of 4000 damage and 4000 damage, your opponent can have damage mitigation abilities to make it so that it becomes 0. But unless your opponent's forward is untargetable, that damage or that power loss will just stack. So yeah, making it so that its power becomes, or power loses 4000 and 4000 again, just with these 2 on the field, that's really, really strong. White Mage. So obviously you have to use White Mage on your opponent's turn to really, I did this, I think it was the last episode or the episode before that, but yeah, there's lots of easy ways to be able to use White Mage to be able to just keep on playing summons or using abilities to then draw cards, then discard cards, and draw even more cards. But you're not only getting loads of cards to hand on your opponent's turn, but you're also funding Yuna's ability because you're having to discard into the break zone, which you can then fund for Yuna. Scholar. So it might be a case that you want to use Yuna's ability, but you really don't want to get rid of that particular card in the break zone. So play Scholar, put it back in your deck, and then put the top card of your deck into the break zone, and then remove that one. Hopefully it's not the same card, or a card you value even more. So it's a bit of a risk, but either way, at least you are not getting rid of that one particular card. Volker. Keep on discarding water summons to use Volker's effect, then use it for Yuna's effect. Pretty simple, really. Right, next up we have Lightning, who is a 4 CP 9k light forward, but she's basically water. So she is an EX burst. When Lightning attacks, choose one forward other than Lightning. You may return to its owner's hand, and then you can pay 1, put the top 2 cards of your deck into the break zone, choose one forward, dull it, or activate it. You can only use ability once per turn. So yeah, the reason I say she's basically water is because she's got bounce and she's got activation, 2 things that water have as well. Tross, so yeah, pretty simple. You bounce something, you get to draw a card, and you've got both Lightning and Tross there. One of the problems with Tross is the fact that you make it a forward, you then go to attack, and then it dies before you even get the bounce. You then don't get a card. Lightning's a little harder to get rid of, so you attack with Lightning, which then triggers Tross's effect, and then make Tross a forward and bounce something else potentially as well. Ravana, Savior of the Nath. So yeah, just another way to be able to reactivate Ravana for relatively cheap. You are paying 1 and putting 2 cards into the break zone, but still, if that means that you can start, running your opponent down with 2 Ravana attacks, and if you put them to, say, 6 damage with that first attack, and then the second attack they have to start blocking, it means Ravana can attack a few more times as well, provided it's killing the thing that's blocking it. Lena, so yeah, you might be having lots of cards be put into the break zone through Lightning's effect, and they might be cards that you really want to play, so having ways to play things out of your break zone or retrieving things out of your break zone will be pretty important as well. Thankfully, Water has some really easy ways to be able to generate crystals, especially with some of the Opus 17 cards. So yeah, being able to play Lena onto the field, pay those crystals, then get those cards that put into the break zone anyway, means that Lightning's cost of her second ability isn't that bad. Jecht. This is stupid, but funny. So let's say you have 3 forwards on the field, Jecht, Lightning, and something else. Let's say you party attack with Jecht and the other forward. Either point damage goes through, or the other forward dies. Basically, as long as Jecht is still there after that attack, you should be alright. You then attack with Lightning, bounce one of your opponent's forwards. Oh no, wait, no, you don't do that. You bounce Jecht back to your hand, which is kind of stupid. Provided you're able to get those 3 forwards to attack, you bounce Jecht back to your hand. Even if your opponent kills Lightning, it really doesn't matter. Provided you've had 3 forwards attacked, you can then play Jecht back onto the field, choose a forward your opponent controls, you then get to break that forward, and then draw a card as well. Because even if you've had 3 forwards attack this turn, and they all die, you can still play Jecht, because you've still had 3 forwards attack, and you get to break something, draw a card. But yeah, being able to play or use Lightning's effect and then Jecht back to your hand, geez, I can't speak, and then replay him, and keep on doing that, because he'll be able to attack the following turn. Your opponent needs to get rid of either Lightning or Jecht pretty fast, because he can keep on breaking stuff every turn. Kind of expensive, but you get to draw a card at the same point and you are still breaking something. And Jecht does also have his nice object ability, yes, that's what I call it now, to be able to cancel things as well. Phil Thanos. So it might be a case you play Phil Thanos and your opponent has a board you want to break, but it's dull. Use Lightning to be able to make it so it's active, then it dies. Similarly, you can use Lightning to save any of your forwards, so it might be a case you can't attack with Lightning because your opponent has a way of cancelling it through, say, Amaterasu, or just a forward big enough to block and kill Lightning. Yeah, it might be a case that you just want to dull Lightning or dull one of your forwards to save it. You play Phil Thanos, break all the active forwards. Shiva. So similarly, you can then dull one of your opponent's forwards to then play Shiva. Now Shiva, you can use a crystal to reduce her cost as well. So it means that you may be paying the one full Lightning's effect, but at least you are probably killing something. Seymour, this is fun. So obviously Lightning's effect is going to be putting lots of cards into the break zone anyway. But if you're running a really summon heavy deck, it might be a case of use Seymour's ability to dull, remove 6 summons from the break zone, deal opponent damage. You then use Lightning to stand Seymour back up, put 2 cards into the break zone. If you're running enough summons, you might have put enough summons in there already anyway, and use Seymour a second time to then put even more, or put 6 more in or remove from game, and then deal opponent another point of damage. You combine that with maybe Go-Go at the same time. You have dealt 3 points of damage just from dulling Seymour twice. Not too shabby. A Vivi with a very slow fade. Yep, similar sort of thing. You can dull Vivi, deal, if it's just Vivi on the field, 4K something, Lightning standing back up, and then dull Vivi again to get to kill something. And again, works nicely in a Black Mage deck as well, because you have the likes of Black Waltz 3, which when it's put from field into break zone, you get to get more Black Mages to your hand. So yeah, just another way to be able to utilize your break zone whilst also reactivating things as well. Yuna, who'd have thunk it? Again, another reason that Lightning is basically just a water card, because Lightning's activating stuff, say maybe Yuna, and then putting things into the break zone, and then that's funding Yuna's ability to put things into the break zone, but you've also then reactivated Yuna to then dull her again. So yeah, just these 2 cards together are really nice. Right, next up we have Zidane from Opus 8. So if you have 6 or more cards in your hand, Zidane cannot be blocked. When Zidane deals damage to your opponent, draw 2 cards, and then Solution 9 is an S and 2 water. Choose 1 forward until the end of the turn. It loses 2,000 power for each card in your hand. So Lakshmi, Lady of Bliss, another card that likes you to have lots of cards in hand, but also a card that gets you cards to hand. So yeah, it can always be at the end of your turn, you actually only got yourself to 3 or 4 cards. Lakshmi will then put you 1 card additional in your following turn, provided they haven't killed Zidane, you will be on 6 cards, at which point you can then go ham and attack with Zidane. Zemus, just make it so that Zidane can't be blocked regardless of how many cards you have. You then get 2 cards to hand. Just nice, really. Mog 6. So, yeah, I mean, you can play Mog 6 onto the field, pay the crystal, you then get to draw 2 cards. That might then put you at a point where Zidane can attack without being blocked, which is quite nice. And then Zidane deals a point of damage, gets you 2 cards to hand. That will then trigger Mog's effect to then be able to break something. Even at the end of the turn, even the beginning of the turn, you get to draw 2 cards. Zidane attacking, that gets to draw you 2 cards as well. That means at the very least you will be using Mog's effect to be bouncing stuff, which is still irritating for your opponent, provided it doesn't have good entry abilities. Still, yeah, being able to just constantly draw lots of cards to hand quite effortlessly using Zidane and having Mog there to constantly bounce or potentially break stuff is also quite threatening. Barsh, a card I have never seen played, but these 2 cards actually have quite a good synergy. So Zidane wants you to have 6 cards in hand so they can't be blocked, and Barsh wants you to have 7 cards in hand to be able to deal his power in damage to things. He has a few different effects, so it's if you have 2 or more cards in hand, he gains Brave. If you have 4 more cards, he also gains plus 2,000 power, and this is all the beginning of your attack phase. And then when Barsh attacks, choose one 40% controls. If you have 7 or more cards in hand, deal damage equal to Barsh's power, which should be about 10k. So it could be a case of that you already have 6 cards in the hand, so Zidane can't be blocked, but you won't trigger Barsh's effect. You attack Zidane, draw 2 cards, you now have 8 cards, which will then trigger Barsh's effect when he attacks. Chelinka. Yeah, maybe your opponent just is willing to take 1 hit on the nose to destroy 2 cards. You play Chelinka, now Zidane's going to attack twice, and you get 4 cards to hand. Nice. Sky Soldier. So with Sky Soldier on the backup line, your opponent then has to weigh up the odds. I can block Zidane, but then the forward I block with is going to die. And if it's a forward they really care about, they might not block and just let you get 2 cards to hand anyway. So having that Sky Soldier there just to make it so that you're threatening killing their forward or drawing 2 cards is a horrible decision for them to have to weigh up. And finally we have Larkeicus, a 3 CP 5k Earth forward with the text: when Larkeicus enters the field, choose one monster in your break zone, add it to your hand, and then you can pay 2 Earth and Dull, search for a monster, add it to your hand. So Talika is the first card, and there's a massive combo that Larkeicus is kind of half a part of using Talika, but it's the infinite combo in Wind Earth. Larkeicus isn't, well, it both is and isn't part of it, because it's not part of the infinite combo, but it's a good way to be able to set up for the infinite combo because it allows you to search monsters or to get monsters out of the break zone. But yeah, ultimately being able to dull Talika and then make it so Larkeicus only costs 2 to then get yourself a monster to pay that monster for another reduced cost as well ain't too bad. So something like X-Array is pretty good. So you use Talika, you play Larkeicus onto the field, and then you can play X-Array onto the field because it's only 2 CP now, and then you can put that into the field break zone and hopefully draw yourself 3 cards. Luminous Puma, so a kind of similar sort of thing. So Larkeicus into the break zone, Larkeicus onto the field. Again, this is all using Talika's effect, so he's only costing you 2. That gets you Luminous Puma into hand. You then have to discard a card and use your 2 remaining backups, and of course this is also making sure you have 5 backups. But that then puts Luminous Puma on the field to get you something to hand, and then you again can put Luminous Puma into the break zone to draw you some more cards, which you could then potentially use on the following turn using Talika's effect, or yeah, whatever. Atomos. So Talika and Atomos are just a great card, or great match in heaven anyway, because you play Talika, or use Talika's effect with Atomos on the field. You play, I don't know, Ouchu, reactivate your 2 backups, which obviously is only a 1 CP backup monster anyway, so it can't have its cost reduced, but just getting those 2 backups down to then play something else for a reduced cost like Larkeicus, which then reactivates your 2 backups through Atomos' effect and gets you a monster to hand, then you play another monster, and yeah, there's lots of really cool things you can do for cheap. Trapdoor. So Trapdoor, when it is put from field into the break zone, you get to choose 4 dependent controls and break it. If you have enough lightning backups, it also becomes a forward as well, which is quite nice. But yeah, Talika, Larkeicus, get Trapdoor back to hand, play it onto the field. It's a forward, problematic forward for your opponent. And every time it keeps them dying, killing one of your forwards, but then killing one of your opponent's forwards, but then using Larkeicus to keep on getting them back to your hand as well. Black Knight. I've been playing this card a few times recently, and it's because people don't see it as much anymore, it's actually a surprisingly problematic card for a lot of people because most of the cards that people play are of 4 CP or less. Now, there are the occasional 5 CP cards, things like Marsh, which are really consistent, but they are then playing 2 CP characters. Most of the time it's a monster or a backup, but it could play that really troublesome forward. Black Knight will kill it. And it's a good thing with Black Knight as well is it isn't targeted, it's just if it enters the field. Is it 4 or less? Yes. Break it. So yeah, play Larkeicus on the field for 2, then play Black Knight onto the field for 1. And to keep on replaying Black Knight just for 1 to break a 4 CP is pretty strong. And then we have Urianger. So it could be actually, this works nicely with Talika as well, but just Urianger and Larkeicus are nice because you can pay the 3 for Larkeicus. That puts a monster back into hand. You then play Urianger onto the field. Obviously, you have to make sure you're in the right elements. So, you know, Larkeicus being Earth, Urianger being lightning, water can be a bit awkward, but you're an Earth, so you can easily color fix for that. So you could be Earth, Water, Earth, Lightning. Play Urianger onto the field, and then play Urianger, and then the monster that Larkeicus retrieved to then bounce on your opponent's forwards. If it's on that like Tross, it means you get to play Urianger, play Tross, bounce a forward, draw a card. Not too bad. And like I said, works nicely with Talika as well. You dull Talika, Larkeicus for 2, get Tross back to hand, Urianger for 2, to then play Tross to then bounce a forward. And Quina, because I really hope one day they'll make a good Quina card. But yeah, Larkeicus onto the field to get you a monster card, which you can then discard for Quina to make it a 9k, I guess. Cool, there we go, folks. The Anniversary Collection set is really, really cool. Not only in design, yay, I love Squall, I love Final Fantasy 8, but it's just a great opportunity for some of the newer players to get some of these really, really heavily played older cards. Now, actually, a fair amount of the cards that are in the box were promo cards. So it might be a case that people still have the access to those older promo cards, well, ones that didn't get distributed when they were the main card. But still, it's got some really good cards there from Opus 1 through, I think it's 10, including, most importantly, Shantoto, and some really strong legends in there as well. And some of the lesser played legends, but that are still fun to play. I don't think there's a bad card included in there, to be honest. Although I'll say that, I'll probably be eating my words, it might be something that was completely pointless. As far as the new cards are concerned, Squall's the weakest, I think. He's fine, he's not a bad card, it's just there are generally better options. But Yuna and Lightning are both pretty strong. Yuna especially. Just if she can stay on the field for just 1 turn to then start using her dull effect, that is super scary. Especially with how fast water can accelerate, things like Vikings, or if you are in water ice, again, playing Go-Go. And I think, you know, Lightning being an EX as well, I think is really strong. And I like the fact that it can bounce your own forwards. That's pretty good as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, be lucky, and I'll see you in the next episode.